The conference room felt smaller than usual that Monday morning. I sat in my regular spot near the window watching my colleagues file in for our weekly staff meeting. My manager, Derek Anderson, stood at the front of the room setting up his laptop. He had that look on his face, the one that meant someone was about to get publicly criticized. I had a sinking feeling it was going to be me. Derek had been my manager for 8 months now, ever since he transferred from the Chicago office. From day one he seemed to have a problem with me. I never understood why. I did my work well, met all my deadlines and got along with everyone on the team. But Derek always found something to complain about. My reports were too detailed. My presentations were too long. I asked too many questions in meetings. Nothing I did was ever good enough for him. The rest of the team settled into their seats. There were 12 of us in the marketing department at Cascade Technologies. I had been there for 6 years, longer than anyone except for Amanda, who sat across from me. She gave me a sympathetic look that made my stomach drop. She knew something. Derek cleared his throat loudly. Let's get started. We have a lot to cover today. He clicked through his first few slides discussing our quarterly targets and upcoming campaigns. Everything seemed normal for the first 15 minutes. Then Derek's expression changed. He pulled up a new slide that showed our individual performance metrics. My name was highlighted in red at the bottom of one column. I want to talk about accountability, Derek said, his voice taking on a sharp edge. Some people on this team seem to think that just showing up is enough. That mediocre work is acceptable. He was looking directly at me. My face started burning. Everyone in the room could tell who Derek was talking about. Let's look at the Henderson campaign, Derek continued. This project was due last Friday. It was submitted 3 days late, and the quality was severely lacking. The client specifically complained about the messaging being off-brand. I opened my mouth to respond, but Derek held up his hand. I'm not finished. This isn't the first time we've had problems with delayed work and poor execution from the same team member. It's becoming a pattern. My hands were shaking under the table. The Henderson campaign had been late, but not because of me. Derek had completely changed the direction of the project on Wednesday, requiring me to scrap 3 days of work and start over. I had stayed until midnight on Thursday and Friday trying to meet the new requirements he had given me with no notice. When I give someone a deadline, Derek said, I expect them to meet it. I don't care what excuses they have. This is a professional environment and we need professional results. Amanda spoke up quietly. Derek, weren't there some last-minute changes to that campaign? Derek's jaw tightened. The changes were communicated with plenty of time to adjust. A competent marketing specialist would have been able to handle it. The words competent marketing specialist hung in the air like an insult. That's what my job title was, marketing specialist. He was essentially calling me incompetent in front of the entire team. I felt tears starting to form and blinked them back hard. I would not cry in this meeting. I would not give Derek that satisfaction. Going forward, Derek continued, I'm going to be monitoring certain team members much more closely. Daily check-ins, progress reports, the works. We can't afford to have weak links on this team. The meeting continued for another 20 minutes, but I barely heard any of it. My mind was racing with humiliation and anger. When Derek finally dismissed everyone, I gathered my things quickly, wanting to escape. Amanda caught my arm as I headed for the door. Sophia, that was completely unfair. Everyone knows you're one of the hardest workers here. I tried to smile but failed. Thanks, Amanda. I just need a minute alone. I rushed to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall, finally letting the tears come. 6 years at this company. 6 years of excellent performance reviews, successful campaigns, and client praise. And Derek had just torn all of that down in front of my colleagues. After a few minutes, I pulled myself together and washed my face. I couldn't hide in the bathroom forever. I had work to do even if my manager thought I was incompetent. I was walking back to my desk when I heard my name called. Sophia Martinez? I turned around. Standing in the hallway was someone I recognized but had never actually spoken to, Alexander Wright, the CEO of Cascade Technologies. He was in his mid-50s, tall with gray hair and sharp eyes. I had seen him at company events and all-hands meetings, but he worked on the executive floor. I had no idea why he would be looking for me. Yes, sir, I managed to say. Alexander smiled slightly. I need you to come with me, please. We have some things to discuss. My heart started pounding. This couldn't be good. Had Derek already gone to the CEO to complain about me? Was I being fired? Alexander was already walking toward the elevator, clearly expecting me to follow. I hurried after him, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. We rode the elevator to the top floor in silence. Alexander's office was enormous, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please sit down." I sat, gripping my hands together in my lap. Alexander settled into his own chair and looked at me thoughtfully for a long moment. "I was in the building earlier this morning," he said finally. "I happened to pass by the conference room where your team meeting was taking place." The door was opened slightly. My stomach dropped. He had heard Derek humiliating me. "I heard enough of that meeting to be very concerned," Alexander continued. "I want you to tell me in your own words what happened with the Henderson campaign." I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. The campaign was originally approved on Monday. I had everything ready to go by Wednesday morning. Then Derek called me into his office and said the entire direction needed to change. He wanted a completely different approach. Alexander nodded, taking notes on a pad of paper. "Continue." I explained that making those changes would require scrapping all the work I had already done. Derek said the client had changed their mind and we needed to adapt. I asked for a deadline extension, but he said Friday was firm. I could feel my voice shaking slightly. I worked late Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to complete the new version. I submitted it Friday at 11:47 p.m., technically before midnight. Derek rejected it Saturday morning, saying it was late and poor quality. Alexander's expression was unreadable. "And the client complaint he mentioned?" I shook my head. "I haven't heard anything about a client complaint. The Henderson campaign hasn't even launched yet. It's scheduled to go live next week." Alexander wrote something down. "So there couldn't be any client feedback yet because the client hasn't seen the final product." "Exactly," I confirmed. Alexander leaned back in his chair. "Sophia, how long have you worked at Cascade Technologies?" "6 years, sir." "And during those 6 years, what kind of performance reviews have you received?" I felt a small surge of pride. "Excellent ratings every year. I've won 2 internal awards for campaign excellence and received written praise from at least a dozen clients." Alexander smiled. "I know. I reviewed your personnel file before calling you up here. Your record is outstanding." Which makes Derek's comments this morning very interesting. He pulled out a folder from his desk drawer and opened it. "I've been watching Derek Anderson's management style for the past few months. You're not the first person he's publicly humiliated. In fact, 3 employees have filed complaints with HR about his behavior since he joined our company." This was news to me. I had thought I was the only one Derek targeted. "I didn't know that," I said quietly. Alexander nodded. "HR has been documenting everything, but we needed more evidence before taking action. Derek is related to one of our board members, which complicates matters. We have to be very careful about how we handle this." I felt a chill. Derek had connections that protected him. That explained why he acted like he was untouchable. "However," Alexander continued, "what I witnessed this morning crossed a line. Public humiliation of an employee based on false information is unacceptable, regardless of who Derek is related to." He closed the folder and looked at me directly. "Sophia, I'm going to ask you to do something difficult. I need you to document everything that happened with the Henderson campaign. Every email, every conversation, every deadline change. I need dates, times, and witnesses if possible. Can you do that?" I nodded slowly. "Sir. I keep detailed records of all my projects." "Good," Alexander said. "I also need you to continue working as if nothing has changed. Don't confront Derek. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. Just document and report directly to me." I left Alexander's office feeling dazed. The CEO of the company had just recruited me to help build a case against my manager. It felt surreal. Back at my desk, I opened my project files and started compiling everything related to the Henderson campaign. I had emails showing the original approval on Monday. I had Derek's email from Wednesday ordering the complete redesign. I had my request for a deadline extension and his rejection. I even had the timestamp on my final submission, 11:47 p.m. Friday, 13 minutes before the deadline. There was no client complaint because the campaign hadn't launched. Derek had lied about that in the meeting. I spent the rest of the day creating a detailed timeline with supporting documentation. By 5 o'clock, I had a 20-page report with 43 pieces of evidence. I emailed it directly to Alexander as he had instructed. The next morning, Derek called me into his office. My heart was racing as I walked in, but I kept my expression neutral. "Sit down," Derek said coldly. "We need to discuss your performance improvement plan." He slid a document across the desk. I picked it up and read through it. The plan was brutal. Daily reports, weekly reviews, impossible targets. It was clearly designed to make me fail. "You have 30 days to show significant improvement," Derek said. "If you can't meet these standards, we'll have to discuss whether you're a good fit for this company." I forced myself to stay calm. "I understand." Derek smirked. "Good. I expect your first daily report by end of business today." I took the document and left his office. Back at my desk, I scanned the performance improvement plan and sent it to Alexander. Within 5 minutes, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Document everything. You're doing great." Over the next 2 weeks, I lived in a strange state of anxiety and hope. Every day Derek found new ways to criticize my work. He rejected projects for trivial reasons. He scheduled meetings at the last minute and then complained when I wasn't prepared. He CC'd senior management on emails highlighting my supposed failures. But I documented everything. Every unreasonable demand, every contradictory instruction, every public criticism. I saved emails, recorded meeting times, and noted witnesses. I sent daily updates to Alexander, who responded with brief messages of encouragement. Meanwhile, I started noticing things I hadn't paid attention to before. Derek did the same things to other team members. Kyle, one of our junior designers, was constantly criticized for being too creative. Priya, our social media manager, was told her engagement numbers were disappointing, even though they exceeded targets. Derek created an atmosphere of fear and anxiety throughout the entire department. On a Wednesday afternoon, 2 weeks after my meeting with Alexander, I was called to HR. My immediate thought was panic. Derek had convinced them to fire me. But when I arrived, I found Alexander there along with Patricia Nguyen, our head of human resources. "Please sit down, Sophia," Patricia said warmly. "You're not in trouble. We asked you here to discuss the situation with Derek Anderson." Alexander spoke next. "Based on the documentation you provided, along with information from other employees, we've completed our investigation. Derek has violated multiple company policies regarding employee treatment, honest reporting, and professional conduct." Patricia pulled out a folder. "We're terminating Derek's employment effective immediately. He's being escorted from the building as we speak." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Derek was being fired. "We want to apologize to you personally," Alexander continued. "You should never have been subjected to that treatment. We failed you by not acting sooner." Patricia nodded. "We're offering you full support, including access to counseling services if you need them. We're also removing the performance improvement plan from your record. It will be as if it never existed." I felt tears forming again, but this time they were tears of relief. "Thank you," I whispered. Alexander leaned forward. "Sophia, we have a proposal for you. The marketing department needs new leadership. We'd like to offer you the position of marketing director." I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "Director? But I'm a specialist." "There are senior managers who were too afraid of Derek to speak up," Alexander interrupted gently. "You had the courage to document the truth even when it put you at risk. That's the kind of integrity we need in leadership." Patricia slid a new document across the table. "This is the offer. Director-level salary, full benefits, and a team of your choosing. You'll report directly to the VP of Marketing." I looked at the salary number and nearly gasped. It was almost double what I currently made. "I need to be honest," I said slowly. "I've never managed a team before. I don't know if I'm qualified for this." Alexander smiled. 6 years of excellent work. Dozens of successful campaigns. The respect of your colleagues. Written praise from clients. You're more qualified than you think." Patricia added, "We'll provide full management training and support. You won't be thrown into this alone." I thought about Derek's smirking face, his constant criticisms, his lies. I thought about the other team members who had suffered under his management. Someone needed to create a better environment for them. I accept, I said. Alexander stood and extended his hand. Congratulations, Director Martinez. You've earned this. The next few days were a whirlwind. HR announced Derek's departure in a brief email citing management restructuring. My promotion was announced separately, emphasizing my years of excellent service and campaign successes. The reaction from my team was overwhelmingly positive. Amanda hugged me. Kyle and Priya actually cheered. My first week as marketing director was terrifying and exhilarating. I had my own office now, though it felt too big and fancy. I spent the first few days meeting one-on-one with each team member, listening to their experiences under Derek's management. The stories were heartbreaking. Kyle told me Derek had made him cry twice by publicly mocking his design work. Priya said she had been planning to quit before Derek was fired. Amanda revealed that Derek had stolen credit for several of her campaign ideas, presenting them as his own to senior management. Every conversation reinforced that Derek's termination had been absolutely necessary. But it also showed me the damage one toxic manager could do. I made a promise to myself and my team. I would never manage through fear and humiliation. I would build people up, not tear them down. My second week, I implemented new team policies. No more public criticism. Feedback would be given privately and constructively. No more last-minute deadline changes without team input. No more taking credit for other people's work. The changes were simple, but the impact was immediate. Team morale improved dramatically. People started volunteering ideas in meetings instead of staying silent. Projects moved faster because people weren't afraid to ask questions or admit when they needed help. Our campaign quality improved because team members felt safe to be creative and take calculated risks. 3 months into my new role, I was sitting in a meeting with Alexander and the other department directors. We were reviewing quarterly performance metrics. Marketing has exceeded every target this quarter, Alexander announced. Campaign success rates are up 34%, client satisfaction scores have improved significantly, and the team has reduced turnaround time by 20%. The other directors offered congratulations. After the meeting, Alexander asked me to stay behind. You've done exceptional work, Sophia. I knew you were the right choice. I smiled. Thank you for believing in me. And thank you for taking action when you did. Alexander nodded thoughtfully. I learned something important from this situation. I should have been paying closer attention to what was happening in our departments. Derek's behavior went on too long because I wasn't watching closely enough. He paused. I'm implementing a new policy. Every quarter I'm going to randomly attend department meetings. Not to spy, but to stay connected with what's really happening in this company. It was a good policy. If Alexander had been in that staff meeting 3 months ago by choice instead of by chance, things might have been different. How are you doing personally? Alexander asked. That was a traumatic experience. I want to make sure you're okay. I thought about the question honestly. I still have moments where I doubt myself. Sometimes I hear Derek's voice in my head, telling me I'm not competent. But then I look at what my team is accomplishing and I remember that his words were lies. Alexander smiled. That's wisdom. Hold on to it. 6 months after becoming director, I was invited to speak at a company leadership conference. The topic was creating positive team cultures. Standing in front of 200 employees and managers, I told my story. I talked about Derek's public humiliation and the fear I had felt. I talked about Alexander's intervention and the importance of documenting problems. Most importantly, I talked about what I had learned about leadership. Bad managers lead through fear, I said. They believe that if people are afraid of failing, they'll work harder. But fear doesn't create excellence. Fear creates anxiety, resentment, and people who are too scared to innovate. I saw heads nodding throughout the audience. Good leadership is about believing in people even when they don't believe in themselves. It's about giving honest feedback with respect. It's about taking responsibility when things go wrong and sharing credit when things go right. After my presentation, 5 people approached me privately. They all had stories about toxic managers. They all wanted advice on how to handle it. I shared Alexander's advice. Document everything, report through proper channels, and don't suffer in silence. But I also acknowledged the uncomfortable truth. Not every company has a CEO who will take action. Not every toxic manager has consequences. Some people would need to make harder choices about whether to stay or leave. One young woman, barely out of college, told me her manager screamed at her regularly. "I thought this was just how offices worked," she said quietly. "I thought I had to accept it." I looked at her seriously. "No. You never have to accept abuse. Ever. A job isn't worth your mental health or self-respect." She thanked me with tears in her eyes. That conversation stayed with me for days. How many people were suffering in silence, thinking they had no choice? How many talented employees were being crushed by bad managers? I started thinking about creating a broader program to address workplace culture issues. I pitched the idea to Alexander the following week. I want to create a company-wide initiative focused on management accountability and employee advocacy. Workshops, anonymous reporting systems, regular culture surveys. The works. Alexander listened carefully. This would require significant resources and commitment from the executive team. Not everyone will support it. I had anticipated resistance. The cost of not doing it is higher. We lose talented people. We have lower productivity. We risk legal issues. And morally, it's the right thing to do. Alexander smiled. "You're right. Put together a full proposal and I'll present it to the board." I spent the next month developing a comprehensive program. I researched best practices, consulted with HR experts, and interviewed employees at all levels about what they needed to feel safe at work. The final proposal was 60 pages long and requested a $200,000 annual budget. Alexander presented it to the board in their quarterly meeting. I wasn't allowed to attend, but he called me immediately afterward. "They approved it," Alexander said. "Full budget, full support. You're going to run the program." I was speechless for a moment. "Really? All of it? All of it? You'll split your time between marketing director duties and this new role. We're calling it the Employee Advocacy and Leadership Excellence Program. You'll be the founding director." The program launched 3 months later. We implemented mandatory management training focused on respectful leadership. We created an anonymous reporting system where employees could flag concerns about manager behavior. We conducted quarterly culture surveys to identify problems early. Most importantly, we established clear consequences for managers who violated our standards. Within the first year, the program identified and addressed 15 cases of problematic management. Some managers received additional training and improved their behavior. Others were moved to non-management roles. 3 were terminated. The results spoke for themselves. Employee satisfaction scores increased by 42%. Turnover decreased by 31%. Productivity metrics improved across every department. 2 years after that humiliating staff meeting, I was sitting in my office, now larger with a view, reviewing our latest program results. Amanda knocked on my door. "Hey boss. Got a minute?" I smiled and gestured for her to sit. Amanda had been promoted to senior marketing manager and was thriving. "What's up?" "I just wanted to say thank you," Amanda said, "for everything you've done. This place is completely different now. People actually want to come to work." I thought about Derek's conference room, his accusations, my burning face and shaking hands. I didn't do it alone. Alexander took the risk of believing me. HR supported the investigation. You and the team trusted me when I was promoted. Amanda shook her head. "You had the courage to document everything when it would have been easier to just quit. That took guts." He was right. I could have left. I could have found another job and tried to forget the whole experience. Instead, I had stayed and fought. That evening, I attended an industry awards dinner. Cascade Technologies had been nominated for Best Workplace Culture in our region. When they announced the winner, I couldn't believe it. We had won. Alexander and I went on stage together to accept the award. Standing at that podium looking out at hundreds of professionals, I thought about how dramatically my life had changed. 2 years ago, I was a humiliated employee being publicly torn down by a toxic manager. Today, I was accepting an award for the program I had created to ensure nobody else had to experience what I went through. This award belongs to every person who has ever been mistreated at work and found the courage to speak up, I said into the microphone. Change is possible. Better leadership is possible. You deserve respect and dignity in your workplace. Don't ever accept less. The audience applauded. As I walked off the stage, Alexander put his hand on my shoulder. "That staff meeting was the worst day of your career," he said quietly. "But look what came from it. You turned your pain into purpose." He was right. Derek had tried to destroy me. Instead, he had revealed what I was truly capable of. And I had used that knowledge to build something meaningful, not just for myself but for everyone who had ever felt powerless in the face of workplace abuse. That toxic staff meeting had been awful. But asking me to stay behind afterward? That changed everything.